Hey everyone, what's up? We're gonna do something a little bit different here today. I've wanted to do this for a bit, I just haven't. Basically, I'm gonna give you my reactions on watching another YouTube video, and then, yeah, I'm gonna give you my reactions to the reactions. Basically, it's Kevin O'Leary doing the review of Graham Stephan's portfolio. And yeah, let's get into it, guys, gals. We're at like 990 subscribers as of right now. I think we can hit 1,000 today. You know, let's make that big push. It'd be great to hit that 1,000 today. If you haven't, please subscribe. Smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Comment down below, because I think I haven't watched the video yet because I've been waiting to do it to be live with you guys. Although I think I'm going to have a bit of a different reaction to Kevin O'Leary to Graham Stephan's portfolio. So who knows? Anyways, here we go. Let's dive into this.
So I want you to look through this.
Okay, so this is a piece of property, number one, purchased in 2012. 59,000 cash, 12,000 reno, out of pocket 71, rent 14,000. So this is a good investment.
That was unfortunately a cash deal. The whole thing was a cash deal. I was all in 71,500.
You couldn't get credit at that time?
Right. I didn't have a credit card.
Right.
So no bank wanted to give a 21-year-old a loan because I had no credit history.
Okay, so right there is an important lesson, and I tell every millennial, even though I don't endorse credit cards, it's very hard to advance your credit rating without having one. So it's good to get a credit card, put maybe a $1,000 limit on it, and then start paying off, use $200 a month and pay it off every month. So I told my son, as soon as he could get one, Trevor, put $50 on the card and pay it off. And now he's got a pristine credit rating, and he's only ever put a few $1,000s through the card. Everybody should understand that. There's no way to game that system. You've got to establish a credit rating or you can't borrow.
So, I mean, this is obviously good advice. Everybody should get a credit card, and I do recommend, again, you go ahead and you put one of your, I put my phone bill on there. So my credit card pays my phone bill. My credit card automatically gets paid out of my bank account, so it pays the full amount every month. Therefore, you build credit. So everybody who can get a credit card should get one. Again, whether it's a $500, $1,000 limit, you just need to start building that credit so that when you do want to invest in real estate or get a loan to buy something, that you can do that. So, I do like that, obviously.
This is the one that you saw. This is the one that I was house hacking on that you thought was a good idea.
Yeah, 585, loan 620. Wait a sec, you borrowed more than the purchase price?
Because I did a cash out refinance.
Yeah.
So what I did is I fixed this place up. I put about right here $220,000 total in renovation.
Whoa.
So now it's worth about $1,250, and I did a cash out refinance.
So it was a real junker, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a serious amount of change you're putting in.
Yeah, that one needed a lot of work.
So now you're using leverage and you're spending to invest, including adding more leverage.
Correct.
So what I like to start thinking about in terms of debt, particularly levered on real estate or any investment, if the poo-poo hits the fan and values go down across any asset class, including real estate, you still owe that $1 million.
Correct.
So you got to start being sensitive to how much debt you want to bring into your world. A lot of people don't understand how debt can put you out of business if things go bad. Of course. You have to be ready to pay that $1 million off at any time.
So, what Kevin's talking about here is, basically having cash assets to be able to pay off all your debt on to real estate if the crap hits the fan. Now, obviously that's a very conservative approach to investing. I would say, especially if you're buying good cash flowing properties, like with residential apartments, typically you're always going to have tenants. Sure, the vacancy rate may go up, rents may decrease, which you are seeing in some parts of Alberta, Toronto downtown, San Francisco. It's down 20% year over year rents. So you are seeing that in some of these markets. yet at the end of the day, you can always rent out that property. So as long as you're, I mean, in my opinion, as long as you're not over leveraging that property, I mean, I think you're probably going to be okay. I don't know that you need to sit there with, you have $1 million in debt on real estate with $1 million cash to pay that off. I think that might be a bit conservative for my liking, yet let's keep going.
Very wealthy real estate developer in New York that came over with nothing from Europe when he was young, when he was 18 years old. He's a multi-billionaire now. And each time he bought a building, he did apartments. He would call it either a pasta or a protein building. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, I start with my first building and I would take a lot of debt down and I would get the rent roll up so I was 100% leased out. And I would only eat pasta until I paid off all the debt. I said, really? He said, yeah, because it was just my wife and I, and we had all this mortgage on that building, and I know what happens during cycles. And so once they paid off that building and now all the cash flow was coming out of the building with no debt on it, he'd start to eat steak. That became a protein building. And his whole life was always making sure that he had enough buildings with no debt on it to sustain the downturns, because the New York in those days every 7 years would take a dive of 30%. So what he would do is he'd always have a couple of protein buildings spinning cash. When the correction hit, he'd use that cash flow to buy new buildings. But he never went bankrupt.
So what he's talking about here is the pasta and the protein is basically somebody's overall portfolio. They're going to have debt in that portfolio, yet at the end of the day, it's probably going to be very little as overall portfolio of debt. Yet they are going to use debt to buy that portfolio. Obviously, a different way of doing things. I think you got to look at that with some grain of salt. We're in a different, obviously, interest rate environment today, with rates below 2%, rather than back then where they were probably paying on apartment buildings 10, 15, 20%. So yeah, I mean, so some of this is grain of salt stuff. Some of this, I mean, obviously you want to keep a well-diversified, if like for myself in my apartment portfolio, I want to keep I want to keep my loan to value somewhere around that 50 to 65% mark overall with it. And right now we're below that. We are going to refinance some things, but let's keep going with this video.
Property number 6.
Yeah, 6
This is another duplex.
Everyone is going up.
Yes.
Like we're spending more.
Yes.
We're putting more debt on. This is $815,000 loan, $680. So there's a little equity from day one, right?
Right.
3.625, very good. Down payment, $115,000, worth $965.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
And all of these, by the way, are rented under market value.
I get it, but how long are the leases for?
1 year.
And so do you get to bump it up?
I don't raise rents, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Why not?
My thought is if I have a really good tenant who always pays on time and no issues, I would rather just not raise the rent and keep them there a long time. And if they do move out, then it's kind of like gravy to me, because I'm able to rent it out for even more to the next tenant and then tell them they could stay there as long as they want at that price.
Yeah.
And for me, I've had some tenants now for 7 or 8 years.
So I'm just going to stop right there and just talk about that, not raising rents. I mean, this works in some environments that you're in. Obviously, I'm in Ontario, Canada, and we can't really raise rents. I mean, we're raising them 2% a year. And obviously this is easier to do on these smaller properties where your value so much isn't tied to the rents, where, on every property I own, your value is tied to the net income. So your gross minus your expenses. So if I can get my gross up and keep my expenses the same, I'm increasing the value of the building. So therefore, I'm always increasing the rents on my buildings. Plus, you have to remember that I own properties that people have lived in for 30 years, and the actual market rent's close to $1,800, and they're paying $600, and I can raise it 2% a year. So I'm never going to catch up to market rent that way. Yet, so I mean, it is a strategy. It does keep people happy. He keeps, his tenant turnover low, which keeps his stress down.
I don't have any debt. I've got to a point in my life where I just don't like debt. So I buy things for cash, and I understand why debt works in this model, assuming the rental market remains buoyant. But it comes a point in your life, and you're still too young, I don't want any obligation to anybody.
But don't you think that's because you already have so much money now that for you going and trying to borrow at 3% to make 5 might not be worth your time versus just the hassle-free of, I'm going to buy it cash, not think about it?
Well, except because I'm older than you, I've seen a lot of things, and I've been through a lot of down cycles. Lots of my friends got wiped out. I mean, imagine being in your 40s and being wiped out, having to go bankrupt. Like, that changes your life forever because you have that on your back. I would never want to wish that on anybody because it is a horrible thing to happen. And the only reason it happened to them is they didn't respect debt. You're being disciplined. You're buying assets that have income. They were buying boats and cars and watches and getting divorced. They loved their lifestyle. They went to zero. You have to respect debt, and you do. This makes sense to me. But again, I go back to that guy in New York, protein building, pasta building, and the whole idea of respecting how debt can rip your life apart. But so far I don't see any crazy. You're not using debt to buy stupid stuff.
Right.
That's basically what's going on here.
All right, so we're just going to talk about that. Obviously, he did go through the fact that he's at a different stage in his life right now where he's not using debt, and he's fearful of debt. And again, it's because he's probably sitting on, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars sitting in a bank right now. So when an opportunity comes up, he can basically say, okay, and put out cash to buy it, and go from there. Whereas someone like myself, I see an opportunity, sometimes I'm going to need to take debt to take it down. And, obviously, if I can borrow at 1.5% to make 8 to 10%, I mean, it just makes sense because then I can go out and do other things with that other money. The other thing, obviously, with real estate is I actually don't need to use any of my own money because I bring in partners, and I get a higher return for them by using leverage on these properties as well. Anyways, we're going to go back into this. I think we're going to go into Graham's stock portfolio here, and we'll get Kevin's take on that.
He's got a little bit more to go in terms of diversification. He wasn't at 10 because he didn't diversify enough.
Yeah.
So this is from his Millennial Money one where he wasn't diversified enough. The other thing I noticed from Graham's Millennial Money one is that, in my opinion, obviously he lives in New York, Los Angeles, and he's buying $2 million property that, I mean, it's probably a nice house, yet again, that house 6 hours away is probably worth a couple $100,000. Just because it's in Los Angeles, it's worth that much money. And one thing I would say is, yes, it's great to build a portfolio in a major city, yet if you're living in a major city, there's so much opportunity out there to go buy real estate in other areas and to grow that portfolio in other areas and take advantage of real estate and what you can do with it in other areas. And he obviously concentrates on LA. He does his own property management. And I would tell him, Graham Stephan, I would go look in other areas and buy real estate in other areas. That's just a thought on this.
I never let one asset class ever become more than 20% of my net worth. Clearly, real estate still remains more than 20% of your net worth.
So right there, he talks about not letting any one of your assets become 20% of your net worth or more. Now, when you're starting out, and I'm sure, Kevin, when he started out, his company was probably worth 99.9% of his net worth. Usually when you're starting out, you're going to be very focused on one area. And then as you get older, it's so much easier to diversify because you'll have income coming from here, or you have this property that you've sold over here. Yet again, when you're building and you're growing a company, whether it's a real estate investment company, whether it's a a real estate business, whether it's another business, you're building a restaurant, a small income or a small business, a large business, you're out there and you're growing a software development company, whatever it is, when you're building that, the chance that your net worth is that's 20% of your net worth or less is zero. It's always going to be more because you're so hyper focused on building that and growing that until you get it to a point where the rewards start to spin off of that, and then you can go and start to divest and go into other asset classes, and that's what I did a couple of years ago. So let's go back into this.
You've got 3 stocks here over 5. You give up some of the upside, but when the correction hits, like a Tesla rolls over and goes down 38%, you don't take the full hit because you've taken profit out on the trimming.
I'm worried about taxes.
Yeah,
because my thought is 50%.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, that's the biggest mistake you can make in your life is to worry about taxes. The fact that you have to worry about taxes is a wonderful thing.
So this is probably some of the best advice I've heard in this whole thing so far, is that that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is they worry about taxes. That the tax, like if you're paying taxes, this is probably, a good thing is because you're making money. And I complain, I just paid a very big tax bill today, and I'm probably going to grumble about it for a little bit. Yet, again, it's because I made decent money or good money. So, again, I probably shouldn't complain about it. Just write the check, be happy. And yet, again, it's why, I hold on to some assets maybe when I should sell them, for tax reasons. So I think that's a very good point there. And the other thing is when you have that portfolio in stocks or whatever it is, and no one stock more than 5% of that portfolio, no one sector more than 20%. I mean, obviously, when the market hits the fan, you're going to do better than than if you're all in one. And again, this is a mature, diversified portfolio. You're going to be heavier in one asset class than the other. This just happens when you're starting out. This is what happens. So, Graham's still a young guy. I think, he can weather any storms. He has really good income. And, if he gets hit in one sector, I think he'll be okay. Because we'll continue watching your YouTube channel, Graham.
What is cash for your total net worth? How much cash do you have versus your entire net worth?
So cash would be about 30%.
That's healthy.
Cash,
That's healthy. I actually have more than 30% in cash.
Really?
Yeah. I've had some exits in real estate recently. I sold my commercial real estate, and I'm going to wait until I see what the economy looks like in 36 months to go back in. But as a result, I'm sitting on a ton of cash.
So, here Kevin talked about he's sitting in a large portion of cash in his portfolio as part of his net worth. And again, for me, cash is dead money. I love to get it to go to work. Going out and earning, he's making 1.75% on that. To me, that's dead money because I know that I can go out and get at least 8 to 10% cash on that, even if I just lend it out on first, second mortgages, or go buy a piece of real estate, or just put it into the stock market and buy a good dividend stock and sell some calls on it. So that's for me right now. Obviously, when I'm in Kevin's advanced age, or his age, I shouldn't say advanced age, I'm going to probably look at that very differently. And being as young as Graham is and having the income he does, then you're going to, for me, that cash would be a problem for me because it could go out and make more friends. I could send that out to make friends with other cash to bring back and to grow my network that much quicker.
This is a really exciting one. I don't know if I can mention this in the video because I haven't announced it yet, but I put a company called, they're a startup, valued at
I've learned from Shark Tank, because this is a Shark Tank investment type thing, you must be ready to absolutely write that off.
Yep.
Because there's a 50-50 chance you will. It'll be a tax loss for you. Very few people can achieve this. I didn't achieve it when I was 30. That's really, really hard to do.
So that obviously when you're investing in a startup company, you have a 50-50 chance that they're going to do something and you're going to make some return, or it's going to fail and you're going to lose all your money, which is then a tax loss, tax write-off, like Kevin says. So yes, when you're doing this, this should be such a small portion of your net worth that if it is lost, then that's fine. And yet if it's a winner and you get a 4 to 10 times, or even if you get it 2 times, then that's, obviously, it's obviously beneficial. And, you get that one time where it's 100x, 100 times, well, that's obviously going to make up for some of the losers, right? But 50-50 are going to fail.
But as a portfolio manager, I got to bring you down to probably a 7, maybe a 6.5. Why? Over-concentrated in one asset.
Fair enough.
So if I just looked at this without knowing who you were, I'd say this guy has too much real estate.
Okay.
And so, but if real estate is who you are, so I get it. But all your maneuvering now should be raise more cash, buy more diversity, maybe a little more conservative. My portfolio I probably have 1,000 stocks, but the majority of them all pay me, and they pay me monthly. So I have a really strong cash flow every month, and my biggest problem is what do I do with the cash?
Destroy the like button for the YouTube algorithm.
One more thing, you've got to remember to destroy the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Do it.
And subscribe.
And subscribe, of course.
So remember, you have to destroy the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And guys, Kevin says that Graham has too much real estate in his portfolio. I'm going to say Graham doesn't have enough. And that he's an operator. And obviously, Graham's a YouTuber. That's where he makes the majority of his money. He makes some of it as a real estate agent. He refers out any leads he gets that he has. And yet, so I mean, I would love, Kevin, if you ever watch my videos, I would love you to come review my portfolio. I think you're going to give me a lower score than Graham because obviously I'm not as well diversified. Yet I'd love to sit down and do that with you. If you're ever in Toronto, shoot me a message. I'd love for you to come review my portfolio and we can do this as well. Anyways, guys, I hope this was beneficial. If I was in Graham's shoes, I'd be probably trying to buy a lot more real estate in lower cost areas in the US, and I would be diversifying portfolio that way. Yet, obviously, who am I? He's 30 years old. He has over a $10 million net worth. So I think he's doing something right. Keep up the iced coffees, bud. Have a good one. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next one.